Alright, so this week was the third week of having my bees, the second week of the nuke. This video this week is just going to be a basic hive inspection of most of the hives, although I did manage to get some good footage of one of the queens this week, so I'll zoom in and show you all that. But that's all that's going to be happening this week. Not much going on. I'll try to mostly just jump around from one frame to the next so that you guys don't have to watch me do the full inspection, because then this would be an hour-long video or something. But anyways, let's go ahead and get right into it here. So the first thing I'm doing with this hive, and it's going to be pretty much the same process that I'll repeat on all of the hives, is taking off the top deep box that I use to cover the bucket feeder. You can actually see the bees have built up a bit of comb to try to block some of the sugar water that's been dripping down through that hole. I'm not quite sure why they do this, because it's not like it was leaking, at least not on this hive this week, so pretty weird. But I'm smoking them in order to try to calm them down, or rather keep them calm. I keep making the mistake of dropping this wooden board. I think in future weeks I'm just going to grab it with my fingers and not mess around with it using the hive tool, because I'm pretty sure I crushed a couple bees because I dropped it trying to futz with the hive tool. Now I'm going ahead and I'm removing this stray comb just to make sure that it's sort of out of my way when I go to put it back. And I'll keep all of this stray comb that they build throughout the season. And I'll use that at the end, melt it down, maybe make a couple small candles from just the stray bits of wax. Now the next thing you got to do when doing one of these hive inspections is I've got to remove some of the frames at the very end. These frames are generally going to be less populated, and especially on these newer colonies where they're not drawn out yet, there won't really be a lot of bees on them. And removing a couple of them just gives me space to work with the more crowded frames, so that I'm not at risk of rolling the bees off. And it doesn't look like they've even started really drawing out these combs. There's a couple bees on them, but not really all that many, so I'm setting the combs down. Now, I've got that extra deep box behind me, and what I really should be doing is putting these empty frames in there. Luckily, there's not really any bees on these frames, but in the future, these frames will have bees when I take out the very end ones, so that's just something I'm going to have to keep in mind in the future. Now, there's a couple more bees on this one compared to the last couple, but still no major progress being made, so I'm going to go ahead and pull those out to the side. Smoke the bees a bit, try to drive them back down into the frame so that I can handle them a bit easier, start sliding them apart. I think on this colony this week there was something like 5, maybe 6 frames of drawn comb, if I'm including half-drawn frames, and adding them together to make one whole one. But you can see they've drawn this one out pretty good, right? So this is our first frame of drawn comb. You can see it's still nice and white, but they haven't really done much on the bottom. Now, I'm looking in here to try to see what the status is. Do they have brood in it? Is the queen on this frame? And I didn't see the queen on this one, so I went ahead and just set it back in the box, or to the side of the box again, just to give myself ample room to work. Again, that wasn't a very populated frame, so I felt pretty confident doing that. There was no brood laid in it, so I was pretty confident the queen wasn't on the cell. I think it was full of sugar syrup from the feeder, which is good, because they're going to go through that sugar syrup at some point when there's not as much resources around. Now, one thing I found interesting here is you can actually see the wood is already starting to change color on some of these frames towards the top. These were all brand spanking new at the beginning, but now you can see they're kind of turning yellow. I don't know if that's caused by dirt that the bees track in, or excess pollen on their feet that gets stuck to the top of the wooden frames, but I just thought that's a pretty neat observation. Now, this frame is basically fully drawn out on both sides, as you could just see when I lifted it up a second ago. Really nice looking. And again, I'm just scanning for the queen. Other than me just pulling these out, though, and doing an inspection, I don't think there was really very much that was interesting to show this week, so for this hive at least. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump to the next one. So this is the one that I started from a nuke box, so they've only been in there for about a week at this point, but I was actually kind of surprised by how little progress these gals had made. I'd sort of expected them to have drawn out a couple of the edge frames. I'm not sure why they didn't, if they just don't feel like drawing out the side ones, or honestly, I haven't got a clue why they have decided not to draw out very much new comb. So instead, it looks like most of the comb in here is what we already had. Now, unfortunately, this week I did not manage to spot the queen in this nuke, so I'm a little worried if she's actually in there, but I'm pretty sure she is because I saw some young brood, which means that somebody in there is laying something, and I doubt it's a laying worker, so. But yeah, it's just really weird. You can see this is one of those old frames, and don't get me wrong, it's nicely drawn out. It's just, it was nicely drawn out when I got it, and I was sort of expecting them to hit the ground running with them already having capped over brood and frames of unopened brood. So, very interesting difference that I'm noticing. I'm not sure that maybe it's just the nuke from the place where I got it, or maybe nucleuses really aren't that great compared to package bees, because the progress on it, honestly, my first package bees seem to sort of be at the same level, but that also means there's not very much new to really show you all this week with this hive, unfortunately, either. So I think I might go ahead and give them a second deep box next week just to see if that sort of improves their drawing, because I know a lot of times bees like to build up more than out to the sides. So they've already got 5 frames full of bees and full of resources, so I'm thinking maybe next week we add a second box and we see if that helps them. But that's plans for next week. For this week, we didn't worry about it, so again, just not much interesting going on, so let's go ahead and jump to the next hive. So on this third and final hive, I actually managed to spot the queen this week, and you guys will be able to see that later. Now, some notes about this one. They have drawn out a decent amount of comb, as you can see here. They're starting on some of the end ones, but they're actually decently far behind the first hive that I showed you all today, which was also a package hive from the same distributors. So I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure if this package had more dead bees in it, just the difference in ages. There hasn't been enough time yet for it really to be the queen that's the issue, because there hasn't even been a full hatching of brood from these queens. So I'm not sure what caused it, but I mean, they're certainly active when I got into them, so that's good. Again, they had actually built up a bit of comb that I've already gone ahead and scraped off to try to block the sugar water. And I'm sure they're going to rebuild it by next week. It seems that they like trying to build in that area. I suppose it's just because maybe they've got the room to do so. I didn't see the queen on this first frame, which is unsurprising, although I did actually spot a little bit of open brood in it, so that means the queen had been on this frame at one point laying. But let's go ahead and jump around to some of the more interesting parts of this hive, shall we? So as you can see, this is another frame that they've gone ahead and gotten fully drawn out, and it is just chock full of resources, so was very happy to see that. It looks like the hive is doing pretty well. But again, this was not the frame that I spotted the queen on, but I'm getting it a thorough look over just to make sure here. And there's not much else to see on this frame, so let's go ahead and jump to the next one. Now we get to the exciting frame. So this frame that I'm about to pull out of here has capped over brood. That means that the larvae have developed enough that they no longer need fed and tended to by the nurse bees. And so they've gone ahead and capped them up, and they'll stay capped until they're done maturing, and out will emerge new bees. Very excited to see all of this and just how much brood has been laid. So you can see it's packed full of bees. And actually, I believe this is the frame where I finally found the queen. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and immediately point her out to you all, but I'll put a circle around it in case you don't see her. And here she comes. Now she's in frame right now. We'll see if you all can spot her. There she is. Right there. And you can see she's kind of pushing through the other bees and they're sort of moving out of her way. Bring it in one more time to show you all. Look at that. Isn't she pretty now? I haven't marked her and I didn't actually have the supplies to mark her on me, but I keep pulling it away there because I'm actually losing track of her while I'm holding it up to the camera, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping her in frame. But that was the queen, and now I'm just going to check on her one last time and put it back. But that's pretty much it for the bees this week. Very cool that I saw the queen, and I'll have to remember to bring my tools for marking next week, try to mark one or two of the queens if I can. But that's pretty much it for now. Thanks for tuning in, and hope you guys come back again next week. Bye now.